well as all of the real-time records from the prior sessions are on tampabasedex.com. So you can see all the meeting notes. And then once again, if you want your comment included, please write legibly, because we're going to transcribe them and we want to make sure that we captured what you want to say accurately. So please use the comment cards. We appreciate that. Well, we are so thankful that you are here and that you're participating in this discussion. And at this time, I want to hand it over to Ed McKinney, who's going to be representing Florida Department of Transportation.
All right. Well, again, thank you all for coming out here tonight. We know there's a lot of exciting things that are going on in your life that's probably more important than transportation, but we're going to try to make this as exciting as we possibly can. But remember, it's still maps and drawings and my face and Bill's face. My name is Ed McKinney. I'm the Planning and Environmental Administrator in the District 7 DOT office. Bill Jones is the Director of Transportation Development. Together we're gonna kind of walk through a little bit about what this presentation is, and also kind of explain to you some of the things we've been working on, because really this is a result of what you've told us. With that, before we get started though, are there any elected officials in the room? I'll acknowledge if there's any elected officials, I'd like for Lisa to stand. Okay. And we could say things that we normally wouldn't say. Okay, so like I said, there's been a lot of things that have been going on. We met about, the last working group was about 3 months ago, and we heard a lot of things. And you can see, as a result, these aren't all the things that the community has told us. I hope many of you had the opportunity to go to the TV Next website and review some of the real-time record comments that were your comments that were provided to us. This is where we got these things. So let's kind of walk through quickly on some of the things we're working on as a result of that conversation. We've got the Intermodal Center study that's going on. We're looking regionally for transit connectivity in some of our major hubs, like the Wesley Chapel area, the USF area, downtown, West Shore, and even out in the Gateway area in Pinellas County. These are things people have said, hey, you guys need to be looking at transit. How are you doing that? Well, we're looking at connectivity. We're also looking to fund the next phase of project development. So as a result of, you'll hear a little bit tonight about the regional transit feasibility plan study, we're actually going to fund the next phase of that study, which is the project development process. We're going to put that in place, and the department's ready to go on that. We formed a tech team within the department to look at tech solutions to some of our transportation problems. A lot of activity going on in that area. So we've got a team in place working with the city, working with the county. How can we incorporate some of these technology solutions to squeeze out additional capacity out of our existing infrastructure? We advanced the height study. This was something the community said that they want us to do, so we've advanced that study. We're going to be kicking that off later this year, working with the community to figure out how do we want to improve that area, that region, from a transportation perspective, from a safety perspective. So there's a lot of opportunity there, and we're excited to get that going. Complete streets. This has been a conversation that's been going on. I'm sure many of you are familiar with the Complete Streets efforts that both all agencies within the region are undertaking, and the department's excited about that. We've developed the Citizens Transportation Academy. Show of hands, how many listened to the first Citizens Transportation Academy? Well, if you missed it, you can go see it. It's on our TV Next website. We've got a recording of it. We had Whit Lanton and Ray Shamonti make presentations. It's worth your time. And we've got 5 more sessions that we're going to be rolling out. And we're excited about providing opportunities for you to be a little bit more educated on things that we do and we talk about. Because it can be transportation, it can be confusing. And then we want to start really utilizing more webinars and opportunities for posting recordings online so that if you've missed an event such as this, you can always go back and watch it again. Or if you really like my face or Bill's face, we'll be there in perpetuity and forever and ever. We'll have an opportunity to see that. Yep.
Just real quick, I want to say the second bullet that Ed just mentioned, the funding for the next phase, that's a big thing for this area. There's only one time in the entire region that we've gone to that next step, and that's down in St. Petersburg right now, or Pinellas County, the Central Avenue ERT system, they call it. This is big. We are, as of July of 18, we have funded, I think it's $5 million for this study. That takes us to the next step. What's transit in this area is going to be? What that means, we're working with our local department right now, because transit is a locally operated system. We need to work with them on a local funding agreement to make that happen. But this is big. We're excited about that opportunity. So just wanted to emphasize that with Ed here.
Okay, so this is probably for some of you, we're repeating, what is Tampa Bay next? It's looking to modernize our infrastructure, preparing for the future, and embracing collaboration with innovation, looking at technology, looking at all solutions. We're throwing the kitchen sink at this problem, and there's a lot of quotes out there like Ray's, there's no silver bullet, there's silver buckshot. Beth mentions the triage approach to transportation. So everything's up for discussion and everything's on the table. So Tampa Bay Next is a program and a process of working with the community, working with you, to develop solutions and an action plan for transportation. We don't just want to come out of here saying that we had a good conversation. We want to come out of here with solutions that we can move forward with. Just kind of remind you a little bit about some of the processes that we will be going through. We've got several workshops that are going to be coming up focused on the downtown, West Shore, and connections in between. We've identified those areas as the supplemental environmental impact statement study area for the SEIS. We're going to have a October 9th in the West Shore Marriott. We'll have an open house style. We're going to go into a little bit more detail and provide a little bit more concepts. You'll see some of those here today, and you'll be able to provide comments and feedback on those. But what these will have is a little bit more detail and be able to really dive deep into some of these concepts and address some of the questions and concerns. And then October 10th, we'll have an open house style, again, presentation in the downtown Hilton. Again, the same style of presentation, looking at concepts. And so what is the difference between the workshop and this community working group? Well, the workshop, the public workshop is more of an open house style. There's no formal presentations. It's a milestone event for the SEIS event. So it's an opportunity for us to show some of the concepts and get feedback from the community on what they think about those concepts. Are we addressing the issues that we need to address? Are the things that we need to consider in the development of those concepts? You stroll at your own pace. There's display boards that'll be around. There'll be various department folks there to answer questions. So it's really an informal, stress-free environment for you to ask questions and get answers. The community working group's a little bit more collaborative. It's looking at a process of having discussions with agency partners. It's more of a big picture discussion. So although we have concepts up on the board, if there's discussions you want to have, such as transit, pedestrian bike connectivity, I mean, we could talk about a lot of different things here in this format, and you could do it in a collaborative fashion with other folks involved in that. And then again, it's about working together. It's about all of us coming together and figuring out a solution. Now, both workshop and this working group provides that opportunity, but we definitely want to stress that. So where are we in this process? We are still in the screening process. I want to remind everybody, no decisions have been made. We haven't defined any alternative that we're moving forward with. We're wanting input. We're showing you what we're working on, and we want you to provide feedback on that. We will be going through a Tier 1, Tier 2 screening process after the workshop, and we'll be refining those alternatives, and there'll be a lot of discussion over the next year on those alternatives as we move forward through this process. But right now, we're just in the screening process. So now I'm going to turn it over to Bill. He's going to go over some of these concepts that you're going to see here.
Thank you. Okay, so we know the challenge is large. I don't know if you guys have heard recently, I think it was on NPR I heard the other day, we have probably the record number of vehicle miles traveled this year. There's changes in demographics with millennials and others. People are still driving. Then we also have the challenge of what do we do to integrate transit? What do we do for bicycle pedestrian? How do we integrate the community aspects, the aesthetics, everything that we need? So the challenge is huge. The charge we kind of gave ourselves at DOT is somewhat simple. Let's open the playbook. Let's look at things. Let's really open this up to opportunities that we can work with the community. Ed mentioned there are several displays around the room. I'm really looking forward to you seeing your engagement with those and your input. We'll have role plots here. We have FDOT staff, as was mentioned, and a lot more concepts. At the workshop coming up on the 9th and the 10th, you'll even see more, but I did want to go through a few of these. Some of them actually hot off the press as we go. The first option you'll see, it's one you've probably seen before if you've involved with the old TVX process, but now that we're with TV next, this is the reconstructed interchange option that we're looking, because we're in the downtown area, we're focusing here. We have a West Shore, obviously, discussion coming up. But as you see, this is going to be very familiar to folks. We have express lanes up to the north, up through Tampa Heights area, up towards the USF area. And then east-west, we have express lanes. Obviously, this is the most impactful. It's a full reconstruction of the interchange. Also takes care and handles operational improvements. There's geometry, sight lines, some of the items from a safety standpoint we thought were critical to review. So this is what you would be most familiar with. What we heard, though, is feedback that what if there's an opportunity to not necessarily use express lanes? And I'd like to point out, too, these express lanes, they can be tolled or non-tolled. We're still in that engagement process. An express lane can be a toll system where it meters and manages traffic by a toll system, obviously. But it also could be from access control, it could be non-toll. So that decision is still in the works as we go through this SCIS process. But what we heard is some of the impacts to the community are still too large with this. So again, I'm sorry, this is very small. We'll be able to really dig into it here in a moment. What if we have to relook at express lanes through this corridor and we took them off going up north and south? This concept here, this is a reconstruction of the interchange. It still has operational improvements, a lot of reconstruction all the way to the Hillsborough River, you'll see, with this concept, and out to the east and then north. We don't have express lanes. We tie those down as we move north with this option. Again, it can be tolled or non-tolled options. And as you go around the room and looking at these, really valuable input is what we're looking for here. That wasn't enough, though. We did hear still, go back. There still has to be something more. Now, these are literally hot off the press, so really looking forward to your options here. These options here, there's going to be two I'm going to show. They are, what if we don't reconstruct the full interchange, but we still provide that connectivity? We still have we have over 1 million people moving through this area. We still need to move people regionally as well as sub-regionally through this area. So these are the brand new concepts that we'd like you to take a look at to help us in our dialogue as we go through. With this existing interchange with elevated express lanes option, again, tolled or not tolled, helps move people east and west. It sends the express lanes over to the I-75 corridor, up towards Wesley Chapel, and then south towards Sun City Center. And it comes east-west. Again, you'll be able to get a better idea of this when you look at the graphics. We do not impact the north side of the interchange in this option. This is what we call the south option. We would have express lanes come across. They would come out of the Selman Expressway. So many of you commented to us that don't like the weed when you come out of the Selman. If you use that, how can we avoid that? Well, we have an opportunity to get in there. The express lanes then drop and do not go north again, or they go through the interchange. Again, the interchange, very minor improvements. We have a 2-lane, the southbound to eastbound ramp would be improved within our right-of-way footprint, I believe, on that one, what we own there. And then we would go south along the I-4 heading towards the Hillsborough River. Much less impactful than the last 2 interchanges discussions that we had. And then a variation of this, we also looked at a north option, where we took this around and came across the north side of I-275 to help bridge this gap. Again, tolled, non-tolled, the movement of those folks there. Again, the interchange is not reconstructed as part of that. So small operational improvements, again, the ramps, and then we would tie down. And what we're going to, Ed will talk a little bit more about it. What that does to the north, that allows us a myriad of opportunities still to that north. What if we use the existing pavement up there? What if we did go to the boulevard concept at some point? I think that all with the MPO is going to talk a little bit about our long-range planning process. We have many options through there that Ed's going to talk about in a moment. But we're really looking forward to your comments on these alternatives here. So with that, look forward to seeing you out around the tables. Turn it back over to Ed.
Okay, as you can see, I mean, this is a work in progress. There's a lot of moving parts in this discussion. There's a lot of discussions on the transit. We're going to hear a little bit about that tonight. There's a lot of discussion still going on about technology solutions. There's a lot of things, as Bill pointed out, this is a work in progress, but this is why it's important. We heard over and over again, you wanted better transparency. This region wants transparency from the department. So what we're here tonight is showing you these options, as Bill said, as we're evolving them. So understand, there's a work in progress. There's a lot of things that still need to be worked out. So one of these areas is our I-275 North. There's been a lot of discussion about, what are you going to do with that, and how are you moving forward with concepts there. So this is a separate PD&E study. We've got several alternatives that we're looking at. Well, several. There's more than several. So we could use general use lanes. What if we convert that inside shoulder to an additional lane to improve operations through that area, provide some relief without impacting additional right-of-way? What if we use that capacity for buses on hard shoulders, provide that space for the buses to use? What if we tear down the interstate? We've heard that, and turn it into a boulevard. We want some feedback from folks. Is that an idea worth pursuing? And again, is that something you want us to look at? Single express lane with a transit corridor. That was a concept that was discussed last year. Is that still something that the community wants us to look at? Elevated reversible express lanes, reversible express lanes, elevated single express lanes. A trench option where you're in effect kind of burying the interstate along that corridor. So these are the things that we've heard, that we heard from you, and we want to get your input on some of these ideas. We've got some typicals, what we refer to as typical sections. Basically, it's a cutout of a section of the roadway, and it doesn't identify a specific segment, so it's not in the Civil Heights area or in the Tampa Heights area. This is just what you would see as a typical type of configuration. But step up to the board, and when you're at this station, and we definitely want to hear your comments and feedback on those. Just to remind you, again, how we've aligned the Regional Transit Feasibility Plan study along with the Tampa Interstate study. And again, we want to see what comes out of that study and how do we incorporate those ideas out of that plan into a PBNext plan. But we're going to do this together. It's not an us versus them. It's all of us in this together. We're not just people of the Department of Transportation. We're all residents of this region. So it's in all of our best interest to see us be successful. Because my daughter lives here. My wife travels this area. Bill travels. We all travel this region. So success is in every one of us our best interest. But we're going to work together with our partners, the MPO, both in Hillsborough County, Pinellas County, and Pasco County, with our transit agency partners, TBARTA, all these agencies, we're collaborating, we're working together to find real solutions. So some of the next steps, just to let you know, and we've got this information available online. We've got, say, 5 more Citizens Transportation Academies. Please, if you have an opportunity to attend those, we definitely want you to do that. And if you can't attend, and when we're running the live session, we also record those for you to refer to later. We also have several public meetings that are upcoming. We invite your attendance. We want you to come. Bring a friend. If you've got some folks that are interested in this transportation business, we promise to try to keep the conversation at a level that we all understand, because I'm not an engineer. I need it explained to me, and so I'm sure others need it explained to them as well. So with that, I think Beth is our next presenter. So thank you.
Hey, good evening, everybody. And if at any point you are just dying of heat, please, I will not be offended if you get up and go over and get some ice water, please. It's much better than falling asleep in the middle of this. I can see you.
So we're going to be talking a little bit about the long-range transportation plan, in part because when the Department of Transportation talks about a PD&E study or an environmental impact study, they're looking at what are the impacts of building a road that's right here, or maybe right over here a little bit, or maybe it's right over here a little bit. But that's pretty much it. And you've asked questions like, well, why do we need that at all? Why can't we do something completely different? And that's not really a question for an environmental impact study. It's not really set up to do that kind of thing or answer those kinds of questions. What is set up to answer those kinds of questions is the long-range transportation plan. And so I'm going to talk a little bit about where we are and why this is a great time to be rethinking our long-range transportation plan and how we're going to tie all of these pieces together. So you know the long-range plan matters because you know that this is a plan that communicates to Washington, D.C. and to Tallahassee what this area's priorities are for transportation funding. And so if we're communicating something that we don't all agree on, then we're going to wind up with project funding in our transportation improvement program for something that may not like. So rather than get to that point, maybe we need to rethink what's in here. So where does it fit with other planning efforts? You may be familiar with a comprehensive plan for your city or for your county. That generally lays out where growth is going to be and how we're going to try to accommodate population growth, particularly from in-migration, while maintaining quality of life. The long-range transportation plan builds on that growth forecast and looks at what are the major facilities that are going to be needed and for transportation and how we're all getting around. And it's lots of different kinds of facilities. So it's roadways, it's buses, it's potentially rail, it's trails, it's on-road bicycling facilities, it's advanced traffic management systems, it's the whole gamut. And then as we communicate that long-range plan of here's our growth and here's how we're going to accommodate our future residents' needs, as we communicate that to our potential funding agencies and sources, then those projects get implemented over time, year by year, with updates of the capital improvement programs and the Department of Transportation's work program. It is coordinated across the region. All of the MPOs not only talk to each other, but we have a formal planning agreement with each other, and we work together to create a sort of overlay long-range transportation plan for the 8-county region. And we know that there are a lot of uncertainties facing our region. We just talked to the Atlanta Regional Commission, and they're talking about not only highways and transit and walking and biking, they're also talking about transportation finance structure. And they have water supply issues that they're dealing with. And they're looking at the ride-hailing services, mixing together with autonomous vehicles, and what does that mean? So a lot of different uncertainties. And we know that we have challenges here with growth. You've probably seen this slide from Tampa Bay Next. I'm now going to be borrowing slides from people to show you that I'm not, making this stuff up. So here's some slides from Tampa Bay Next. Tampa Bay is the 5th fastest growing metro area in the United States, with almost 5,000 people per month moving here in 2016. And so we are in this process of working together to come up with an action plan for transportation. So our program of the MPOs is similar to Tampa Bay Next in that the whole gamut of different types of transportation improvements are to be considered in this. And one of the things that we've seen in the Tampa Bay Next process is, let's see if I can get this right up here. Preferred alternative, West Shore interchange, evaluating express lanes and other concepts. West Shore to downtown corridor, evaluating express lanes and other concepts. So, of course, as we're looking at what the growth forecasts are going to be for the city of Tampa, for example, how might those other concepts affect how we grow and what you could expect in Tampa Heights, for example, in 20 years? So if it's converting I-275 to a boulevard north of downtown Tampa, what does that mean for Tampa Heights and Seminole Heights? And what does it mean for the rest of the county? Not only in terms of how many people and jobs might live there, but how is the traffic, for example, that's currently moving from Pasco down to Pinellas, how is that going to move? Can we find some other ways for that to happen? And in fact, one of the ideas that's been floated around of the I-75 express lane, that actually has been a major priority of our regional organization for a number of years. So coming back to this concept would definitely be in keeping with some of the ideas here locally. And premium transit is the interstate right-of-way. That's another concept that's come out of Tampa Bay Next, transit in the median, buses on the shoulder, transit on the east side. All of those have implications for growth. So like if you build like rail on the east side and you have some stations in the center of Tampa, then what types of growth and density do you think might happen around those stations? So that brings us back to the Regional Transit Feasibility Plan, which of course is also going on right now. And the top two recommendations that Scott is going to be talking about in a minute, both of these are corridors right through the middle of our planning area. So when you start talking about population and job growth, this has a lot of very serious implications for what's going to happen in the long-range plan. And one of these, looking at bus rapid transit on the I-275 corridor, whether it's in express lanes or whether it's running on a shoulder, that's something that we've looked at in the past, and we've looked at it with the potential to maybe connect autonomous vehicles in the future. So we've got a downtown autonomous vehicle pilot getting started before the end of the year, and we're working with the University of South Florida on an on-campus pilot. So there's potential to link those things up in the long term. On the other hand, what if we look at the CSX rail corridor and what could happen with the transit service on that corridor? This is the line from downtown Tampa to USF that Scott's going to talk about in a minute. When we look at how that stacks up against the Sunrail corridor, we have more than 100 miles of low-use CSX track here in Tampa Bay that's highlighted. And the Sunrail corridor actually had about 6 times as much freight traffic running on it before it was converted to commuter rail use. So that was a very valuable corridor for CSX, and there was a lot of work that had to be done to move those freight trains off of that corridor and onto a different freight corridor. Since we have a dead-end line out here, this isn't as valuable from a freight traffic perspective, and it makes a lot of sense to try to put additional cars, additional use on that right-of-way that goes right through the heart of our metro area. And that, too, would have different implications for how we grow. And, of course, these are slides that I stole from Frank. The boulevard conversion concept of looking at what happens to the traffic that is currently on separated grade highways when you put them at grade. And Josh asked us to look at the 65% of trips that are on I-275 between downtown Tampa and USF. So if we have 150,000 vehicles per day on I-275 north of downtown Tampa, this is about an MLK right up here, and a third are passing through, then could we possibly accommodate the 50,000 that are passing through on express lanes in some other location? And what can we do for then the 100,000 that want to travel back and forth between downtown Tampa and the USF area? So obviously lots of uncertainties. And those choices play into each other. So if you look at AV transit on I-275, then that gives you a focus on that corridor as opposed to the corridor through East Tampa. The way that we played these things out in our last long-range plan was to take them to kind of logical extremes and show you how they play out. So, for example, in our Imagine 2040 scenario planning project a few years ago, we looked at a scenario where we don't put any limits on urban sprawl. We just let it consume the available green space, and then we look at what roads might need to be extended and what all that's going to cost. Then on the other hand, what if we did completely the opposite of that, and we did just as much rail and as much infill and redevelopment as you could possibly fit in there under the comprehensive plans that have already been adopted by the cities and counties. And so that's what this concept was, the bustling metro. It's maximum rail, maximum transit-oriented development. And then the third scenario that we floated was express lanes on all of the interstate highways and what we call new corporate centers on some of the interchanges, particularly in the outlying area. So you can see all of these are exaggerated. None of them are intended to be realistic. But what they do is let you play out what this means, and then we can come together on a hybrid scenario. So that's basically what we're proposing to do over the next year, and to do it instead of just at a county level, to do it at a tri-county level. So with Pinellas and Pasco, which is our Tampa Bay Transportation Management Area leadership group. And to look at some different scenarios and then bring them together into a hybrid scenario, create a public survey so that everybody has the opportunity to react to those scenarios and say what they think are the most valuable parts that we should keep. And then next year, which would be calendar year 2019, to work on cost and funding strategies, cost-sharing strategies among the three counties to try to make that preferred scenario happen. So as alluded to us moving forward together, that's how we propose to do it over the next year. The next thing that happens is crafting the scenarios, and we're going to want your feedback on that. So again, think kind of exaggerated, push the envelope as far as you want to push it, and we'll see, we'll crunch the numbers, and we'll bring the numbers back to you to look at. So this is where I like to invite everybody to react to 3 multiple choice questions using your cell phones. So if you could go ahead and switch to the web browser. So if you could start off, take out your cell phone and text to the number 22333. You're going to send it to 22333. The word PlanCom, which is short for Planning Commission. And then once you've sent that text message, you're all set up. You should get an acknowledgement back. Seeing some faces. Nods. Yes, you got an acknowledgement back. Okay. Okay, your first question. What big ideas or drivers of change
could most affect how and where we grow, and you can select 3. You can text them individually. So A is vacant land availability. B is declining gas tax and more reliance on tolls and fees. C is dramatic traffic growth. D is deferred maintenance. Everybody see? C is investing in fixed transit. F is automated vehicles. G is shared mobility services. H is aging population. I is income stagnation. J is access to job centers. K is tourism industry strength. L, freight logistics industry strength. And M is climate change. Does anybody need anything read aloud? Again, you can get up and walk up towards the front if you can't see well. So got a lot of votes for dramatic traffic growth and investing in fixed transit. It's sort of like popping popcorn in the microwave. You have to wait till it gets down to, only 2 pops for 10 seconds. Okay, so it looks like investing in fixed transit, dramatic traffic growth, automated vehicles, access to job centers, and climate change. Okay? That looks good to everybody? Okay, I have 2 more questions for you. Okay, so what are the best strategies to accommodate population growth? So this is sort of a where do we grow question. So A, redevelop cities and older suburbs at higher density. B, redevelop older commercial strip corridors as townhomes and apartments. C, redevelop around new fixed guideway transit stations. D, develop agricultural land as needed. E, develop new towns in outlying areas. F, develop along interstate highway and expressway corridors. G, don't accommodate it. H, other. And you do get to text me your thoughts at the end. Got a lot of votes for redeveloped cities and older suburbs at higher densities. That does say higher densities, folks. Does anybody need anything else read aloud? Everybody can see all right? Okay. Strong consensus on redeveloped cities and older suburbs at higher densities, followed by redevelop around new fixed guideway transit stations. Okay, anybody else? Okay, let's go ahead and lock that one. And we'll move to the next one. Okay, so our third multiple choice question, this is going to be our last multiple choice question. For our future population needs, how should we focus transportation resources? Select 3. A, add lanes to interstate highways. B, build more elevated highways. C, widen 4 to 6 lane roads to 6 to 8 lanes. You're laughing. D, innovative intersections and interchanges. E, advanced traffic management systems and automated vehicle and connected vehicle readiness. F, maintain pavement and bridges. Hey guys, I like that one. Vote for that one.
G, better bus service in counties. H, transit connecting counties. I, first commuter/light rail line. J, walk and bike facilities. K, step up safety improvements and traffic calming. L, better freight rail and truck routes. And M, other. Well, we got some others in this one. Guys are still voting. You only get 3 votes, you know, it'll max out. So it looks like our top one has stayed first commuter/light rail line. And then we've got walk and bike facilities, bus service in counties, innovative intersections and interchanges, and advanced traffic management systems and AV/CV readiness. Look good to everybody? Anyone want that one? Okay, so I'd like to get your home zip code for our records. Thank you so much. And then I'm going to open up a polling question that will allow you to type in any other things that you wanted to share with us. We actually do track this, guys. We check to see what our dispersal of public survey responses is geographically across the county. So I would greatly appreciate your home zip code. Thank you so much. Okay. Okay, you want to go ahead and lock that, and then the last one is just an open-ended response so that you can text me anything else that you want to be thinking about in creating the scenarios. And that's the end of my presentation. I'm going to be sitting over there. I'd love to talk with you more about the scenario development and what you'd like to see us put together. And I think Scott's up next, right? And you can continue texting until you send a text message that says leave. Yep, and leave will take you out of it. Thank you.
Thank you, Beth. Good evening, everybody. How are you tonight? Before I get started, I don't know if staff wants to recognize Commissioner Kemp. She just she joined us tonight. So a lot of the things I'm going to talk about tonight, actually you've heard some of those concepts expressed already. And what Ed and Bill were talking about, or what Beth was talking about, we're all talking from the same page. Personally, I'm really excited to be here tonight. You know, I've been through a couple of these community meetings. There's a lot of conversation about transit, and multimodal is my passion. So this is my people, right? This is where I want to be to have this conversation. I'm very excited about it. What I will do is I'm going to go through the regional transit feasibility plan tonight, give you a quick update on that. I'm going to try to go through that pretty quickly. I want to get us back on schedule so that you guys have lots of opportunity to go to the breakout sessions and have an opportunity to ask questions or make comments. So my charge is to define a premium transit project for Tampa Bay. And it's been something that I've been very passionate about and have been involved with for over a decade. But when we're talking about premium transit, first I want to define what that means. Premium transit is something that gets people between A and B very quickly. And usually that means it has its own right-of-way, it's on its own lane. Beth made the comment about fixed transit. That's premium transit. That's what I'm talking about. So for Tampa Bay, What are the things that we need to do to actually implement premium transit in our region? It's very simple. We have to answer three primary questions. First, of course, we've got to figure out what the project is. What are we trying to build? What makes sense for Tampa Bay? The second question has been one that we've had a lot of conversations about over the years, is how exactly do you fund that project? And the third one is who owns it, who takes responsibility for that project, who builds that project? My job is to focus primarily on answering number one, what is that project? And that's what I'm going to talk about tonight. So the reason why we're even looking at premium transit is pretty simple. Beth talks about it, Ed and Bill talked about it. Tampa Bay's growing. We're going to see a lot of growth in travel, and we're just not necessarily keeping up with that growth and the number of new lanes that we're adding, so we're experiencing congestion. So the question is, can premium transit be another option to get people around Tampa Bay? Another thing that probably not a lot of you are aware of, or some of you may be aware of, is that we've done an awful lot of planning in this region, but we've yet to be successful in the past 30 years to actually get federal and state grant dollars for capital transit projects in Tampa Bay. Something that we've been really behind the ball on, and it's definitely a focus of what we're doing here in the plan. So as I mentioned, we're looking at finding that premium transit project that's going to compete well both for federal dollars as well as state dollars. I'm going to talk a little bit about technology, but technology is important, and there's some really new and exciting things that we can talk about in the realm of technology, especially when it comes to transit. And at the end of the day, of course, it has to serve Tampa Bay first and foremost, both today and in the future. So we're pretty much through 3/4 of phase one of the plan, which is basically we have two phases. First, we're going to go through the process of going through the technical work, refreshing the data, but coming up with a draft implementation plan. And we're scheduled to do that by January of 2018. Once we identify that draft, we're doing nothing but vetting that draft with the community for the rest of next year. So February right through October, so almost eight months of vetting that plan with the public. To date, we've had a number of different outreach activities, a lot of small group meetings, we've had a couple of workshops. You can see the statistics here, a lot of website visits. We're relying very heavily on our website and making sure that we're transparent with everything that we're doing. Everything's being put on our project website, which is tbregionaltransit.com. So we've heard a lot of different comments. We've had, like I mentioned, a number of outreach activities, 3 workshops within this month. And I think we'll get like, the comment that I would go to is right there in the middle. I get that a lot. Scott, stop talking to me about these transit plans. Let's start building. So I've heard a lot about that. And I also get a lot of conversations about the type of mode. It should be something that runs on rubber tire, something that runs on steel wheel, and what have you. We've done a lot of work up to this point, and I'm going to go through some of those efforts in detail. I don't think we need to spend much time here because really the development of that draft plan can be boiled down to the 3 simple steps, right? We want to make sure that we're asking a direct question and identifying solutions for that question. Step 1 is focusing on where. Where should that project be? Where are those top performing connections? Step 2 is basically where we are right now, is figuring out, okay, what should operate on those connections? What type of transit mode? Again, is it rubber tires, is it steel wheels, or something else? And then once we put those 2 together, where we have a connection and a mode, we have a series of projects. We're going to go through and figure out, okay, well, how do we move those projects forward towards implementation? And that is that draft plan will be coming out in January. So for step 1, what we did is we started off with the long-range plan that Beth was just talking about. You can see we have over 67 different projects that we started analyzing step 1. They're all coming from the long-range transportation plans within our region. We ran them through a series of evaluation criteria. I want you guys to memorize each one of these. The takeaway from step 1, we focused on jobs and population, right? Good transit projects serve a lot of people and a lot of jobs. That's what makes a good premium transit project and really builds the case for implementing one. So that was really our focus in step 1, is where are those job centers? And I think if we, as citizens, we really know what those are. We're looking at the downtown Tampa, downtown St. Pete, West Shore Gateway, USF, Wesley Chapel, and the alike. And when we begin connecting those, and we start looking at those population centers and start connecting those to our jobs, what we identified in step one is this regional transit vision. And this is different from what we've done in the past. A lot of times you'll see an effort go through those mini planning studies that I mentioned before, go through the process and identify the vision at the end of the effort. What we're doing here is we're trying to take it that next step, right? We're not just here to identify that vision, but we're here to identify the path forward too. So you'll notice we've come up with a vision pretty early on in the process. And a little secret, I know I have been working on this for a few years, our needs have not changed over the last decade. We look at the data, we refreshed all our data to current 2017 figures, and the way people are moving around our region are quite similar. So the needs have not changed, and they're very similar. And what you can see here with that vision, what does that give us, right? I talked about, at the end of the day, serving Tampa Bay. So when we look out to 2040, within a half mile of that vision network, all those blue lines, we're going to serve 6 out of 10 jobs by 2040. Over half of the residents in the Tampa Bay area. So great benefits from that vision. But as we move forward from that vision to figure out which project or project should go first, we start narrowing that down to what we're calling our top performing connections. Those are those darker blue lines on the map that you see up here. So I talked about those travel patterns, serving jobs and activity. Some of the comments that I got from the public on our vision is, again, from a technical standpoint, we know we need to serve jobs and people, and we're hearing that from the folks that are coming out to our workshops as well. Get me to my job, get me to my activity centers. Once we finish step one, we started looking at those dark blue lines, those top connections. The next step is figuring out, like I mentioned before, what should operate on those top performing connections. So you can see a couple examples of some of the transit modes that we've looked at, analyzed during step two. We looked at everything from ferries that we call gondolas or aerial propelled transit, a number of what we call rubber tire solutions. I'm going to go into a little bit of detail there, which includes bus on its own lane, bus rapid transit. And we looked at steel wheel, light rail, commuter rail, monorail, elevated rail, and really the whole sort of spectrum of modes that would make sense for our area. So we have all this information on our website. I'm not going to go through it here today, but I would definitely encourage you to go to the website and look at each one of these modes. There's a lot of things that need to be discussed so that you're sort of understand that each mode is really designed to do and serve a certain type of market. For example, express buses are generally carrying people longer distances, trying to get people to major activity centers, and doing it sort of during the rush hour. So you're trying to serve commuters, right? There's other modes that are like that, but then there are other modes that are trying to get people between neighborhoods and doing that internal circulation. And once you know who we're trying to serve and why, it helps you make good decisions as far as which mode best serves that movement. In the rubber tire realm, something I'm particularly very passionate about, and I've been talking about a lot about lately, is that not just rubber tire realm too, but transit as a whole, the industry is moving towards autonomy. As we look 5, 10 years in the future, knowing that the technology advancements that are out there today is something that we're taking a very serious look at and definitely including it in the development of the plan itself. The reality is, on the rail side, we've had autonomy in a number of different cities across the country, airports and what have you. Probably a lot of things that, something that people don't realize about our region is that we've actually had an autonomous rubber tire solution operating in Tampa since the 70s. That thing you guys take between the terminals at the airport, that's autonomous rubber tire. So some of the newest technological advances within the rubber tire sort of arena has been more so on the smaller vehicles. So I have a number of pictures up here of some of those smaller vehicles, and what you're looking at is, first and second generation autonomous vehicles, which literally, as it stands today, are carrying between 12 to 15 people per vehicle, and they're going top cruising speed. You can see some of the stats here, around 25 miles per hour. Not very fast, right? But I highlighted what we're calling third generation, just to show you in the past year, 2 years, the advancement on that side of things. Now you're carrying 16 people and a top speed of 38 miles per hour. So really the question is for Tampa Bay is if we take a platform like that, put it in its own lane, how fast can it go then? A lot of these are actually operating in the street with conflicts with pedestrians and traffic. So something to be aware of, and something that we definitely have to be prepared for when we're looking at a project like this that looks out 5–10 years into the future. I talked about all the different steel wheel technologies. Again, light rail, commuter rail, elevated rail, monorail. We looked at water and air, and we assigned those modes for evaluation to each one of those connections. And we did that, again, and I'm not going to go through it in great detail, but we looked at the patterns. Who are we trying to serve? Are we trying to get people back and forth to work? Or are we trying to get people between activities within different neighborhoods or communities? It makes a big difference when you're picking a mode and moving that forward. So in step 2, which is where we are right here tonight and today, we looked at a couple of different criteria. We looked at how well we're going to compete for those federal and state dollars. We also looked at the return on investment. We looked at impacts and benefits of those different projects, as well as asked public opinion on each one of those 15 projects that we studied. I won't go into a lot of detail about the scoring. It's all going to be on our website, again, tvregionaltransit.com. But basically, we took the 15, compared them to each other, broke up that range into a score of 1 through 5, 5 being good, 1 not so good. So you'll note on the website that we've gone through each one of the top 5 connections. West Shore to Brandon is one of the first ones. You can see how it did in all the different categories, and you can start to see how they rank out against each other. Again, that's 15 projects' relationship to each other. So we looked at West Shore to Brandon, rubber tire and dedicated lane, commuter rail, light rail. We looked at downtown Tampa to USF. Same thing, rubber tire and dedicated lane, light rail, commuter rail. We looked at essentially the 275 corridor. This is from Wesley Chapel all the way through Tampa, West Shore Orbit, downtown St. Pete. We looked at rubber tire in a toll lane, some of the conversations here tonight, rubber tire in a toll lane, as well as the steel wheel options. We also looked at Clearwater to Gateway to St. Petersburg, as well as South Tampa to downtown Tampa. And from the technical work that we've done, what we saw is that there are basically 2 connections that are rising to the top. And that's the 275 corridor, and essentially in and around the CSX corridor between USF and downtown Tampa. And really the conversation is which mode makes best. There's definitely value to rubber tire solutions on these corridors, as well as steel wheels. So the technical is pointing us to the fact that there's 2 connections, with maybe some additional conversations on which mode makes sense for those 2 connections. Now, when we went out to the public and asked the same questions about those 15, got the same answers. I was really encouraged that when we're talking to the public, we're getting input from the public, and it's really coming very close to what we saw on the technical side. A lot of consistency there. The public heard a lot of interest in rail, but those top 2 connections were overwhelmingly in and around the 275 corridor, as well as that connection between CSX or on CSX between USF and Tampa. So I will be here, just like Beth mentioned at the breakout. I apologize, I went through this really quickly. Please go to our website at tvregionaltransit.com. We do have another meeting coming up this Friday. We're going to talk about all this information at depth. So please join us at the TMA, which is Tampa Bay Transportation Management Area Advisory Leadership Group. So long name, TMA, better acronym. Please join us there, and of course, go to the website. As we go through the rest of this year, which is October, November, December timeframe, we're going to be looking at those projects and breaking them up into phases and looking at how we can implement those. So with that, I think that concludes our presentations tonight, and I will turn it over to our facilitators, and we'll move to our breakout session.
Thank you so much. Can you tell we have some folks in this room who are passionate about transportation? So great that we have them able to come to our community working groups and share all these projects and plans and hot off the press. Before we go and do our roundtable discussion, I'd like to introduce David Gwynn, District 7 Secretary. Thank you for joining us this evening. What did you guys think about the presentation? Can we give a round of applause to our 3 presenters? so at this time, what I'd like to do is invite you to go talk to our experts, our presenters, and ask them your questions, look at their plans, give them your comments. Please, if you have something that you want included in the real-time record, please fill out the form so we can include it and have it there, since these roundtable discussions and conversations are not being recorded, so anything you want to write down and document, please do. We'd love to capture your comments. So at table 1 over here, we have Ed McKinney and with Florida Department of Transportation. Oh, we do have one, okay. And then table 2, we have Beth with MPO. And then table 3 with Scott with the Regional Transit Feasibility Plan. Are you on that one? You can be on 4. Be on 4. And then Hart is joining us at table 3. So at this time, I just want to thank all of you for coming here tonight, and please feel free to walk around and talk to who you'd like to, and enjoy the rest of your evening. Thank you so much. Sure.